Okay, here we are on the Launch One podcast. I'm Mason Springer. We are here with our guest today. This is Chad Sylvester. Chad, you've got quite the resume in the hunting industry. Go ahead, give a brief description of what you're known for, what you specialize in. What's your resume look like?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Mason. I'm looking forward to the conversation. As far as a resume, I think probably most of your audience, if they recognize me at all, I'm humbled by what you think of me. But I think if I had to sum it up in like an elevator speech, I think most people probably know me as the owner, co-founder of Exodus Outdoor Gear. It was a D2C hunting brand that specialized in trail cameras. That was founded in 2015. And we ran that business up until last year, 2025. We closed the doors, and it evolved over time. We started in trail cameras, and then we grew a media vertical to the business where we had the Exodus podcast, Whitetail Cribs, pretty big YouTube channel inside of that media vertical. And then in the later years of the business, we got more involved on the archery side with like a tailor built arrow offering to bow hunters. So I think, if anybody recognize my face or voice or name, it's probably be because of that.
Yeah, I know. We went out to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for the Great American Outdoor Show. Can't remember if it was this winter or the previous winter, but we're sitting in the Exodus booth and there was always people coming up, "Hey, that's Chad," And that was just pretty cool to be around, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it is. That was it was a big part of who I am was Exodus and that journey, and not only just you know, from a business perspective, but also as a individual, as a hunter. That venture meant a lot to me, and I'm proud of what we did, and in a lot of ways, that fingerprint of Exodus, like in the whitetail world, is still present and as large as it was when the business was up and running. We were
Yeah.
fortunate enough to sell some of the media assets at the closure of the business, and sold some assets at the end of the business there. And we were fortunate enough that Jake Hofer, my business partner, was able to buy a big portion of that media vertical and keep it alive under the WHTL brand. So a lot of the content that people were used to seeing from Exodus lives on, just kind of in a new name.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You guys were kind of had like a content empire when it comes to whitetail stuff. I mean, that was really cool. One of my favorites was the Whitetail Crib series. That was really awesome. You guys even came and did Dad's Trophy Room here a few years ago. And I always enjoyed watching those episodes. Yeah, you guys really had some cool stuff going on there with Exodus. Yeah, it's fun, and you're still doing content. You're on the podcast right now with me. I saw you just did a podcast with Aaron Hepler on the In Camp podcast. I saw a couple clips from that. That ought to be a cool one to listen to. But yeah, you're still going.
Yeah, I still doing a few podcasts a month, just as a guest, not hosting anything, which I prefer. It's a
Yeah,
lot easier to be the guest and not have to do all the back end work as you're kind of learning and figuring out. But still have a lot of ties to the outdoor industry and the hunting world, both in whitetail space and the western space. And I've known you and your dad now for, gosh, probably 6 to 8 years, maybe, something like that. I
yeah.
think I think your dad was an earlier guest on Whitetail Cribs, and I think that was the first time we ever met in person. But you just never know what those relationships and what those meetings and introductions are going to turn into, because now you fast forward from the Springer Whitetail Cribs episode, and your dad invites me into kind of his Western group, and now I'm headed west, bit with this elk bug worse and harder than anybody could ever imagine. So
Oh
you just
yeah.
never know what those opportunities are going to bring.
Yeah, let's talk about that elk hunt. So I was kind of planning on going out this year. I went when I was 8, and of course I didn't hunt. I just went to give a couple calls and follow along with everybody, and that was like to this day that's some of the most fun I've ever had. And I was looking forward to the opportunity to go out there again this year. I ended up trading it for another trip this fall, but I mean we're closing in on elk season. Do you know when you guys are leaving?
That's a good question, Mason. John and I were just trying to nailed this down yesterday. We don't know when we're leaving yet.
Really?
Everyone else kind of has their days or their trip kind of known, departure and arrival, and or arrival and departure, however you want to look at it. And John and I are still trying to figure this thing out: when we want to leave, when we want to come back. But I was thinking be out there around the 12th to the 22nd, something like that. I know I talked to your dad; he was a little worried about pressure during that middle portion of the month, because it's like, as a non-resident, if you're going to pick a week to hunt, it's probably going to be the week leading up to the 18th, 19th, 21st, somewhere in that 14th to 21st time frame. But so your dad and those guys are going a little earlier. John and I are still trying to figure that out. It's every year, John and I, as a group, but you always have like one guy you hunt with or travel with just because of the logistics. And it's funny because John and I, every year, we tell ourselves we're going to go a little later this year and hunt, to the end of the season. Because the first couple of years we went early, and then we had to leave in the middle of the month, and it was just getting good. And we
Mm-hmm.
keep telling ourselves we're going to leave later and later and later so we can hunt later in the season. But it's like the closer September comes, the more FOMO we get, and it's like, oh man, we got to leave. We got to, like, it opens the
Yeah.
30th. We got to leave Memorial Day. We got to get out there earlier. So I don't know. Hopefully, we have that pinned down by tomorrow, because unfortunately now that I'm not self-employed, like, I actually do have to submit vacation time and get that stuff approved and get it on the books. So I'm running out of time. So we got to make a decision here real quick.
Yeah. Do you know how long you're going to be out there for? A week?
It'll be a little longer than a week. I think about 10 hunting days is kind of what I have for myself, and then you have a couple days on either side for travel. So something like, I don't know, 10, 14 day trip, depending on how it goes. Something like that for me. Well, I guess the 12th to the 22nd would only be 10 days. So
Yeah.
yeah, 10
Yeah.
10-ish days, depending on what the logistics look like. And yeah.
Yeah. So I know Dad's been hunting this unit for probably a decade, maybe even more, and he's really got a feel for how it all works. Like, he knows how many days it takes to find the elk and start hunting them. How many years have you hunted in this unit?
This will be my fourth year. I think it'll be my fourth year in this unit. Yeah. And it's changed, even the 4 years that I've been there. It's changed. Some of that's regulatory driven, but there is a little more pressure. The elk hunt a little bit different year over year over year, um, and there's a lot of variables in there. How much rainfall? How wet was the spring? How good was the snow melt? How wet was the spring? What's the summer look like? What's the fire situation look like? What's the grazing situation look like from the grazing permits? And so there's a lot of variables there. I think the good thing that we're blessed with is there's enough country for everybody to kind of spread out and kind of hunt their own hunt. The unit is diverse enough where if you want to hunt from the truck, you can certainly hunt from the truck, short day trips in and out, 1 or 2 miles in, come out 1 or 2 miles back in for the evening. Or if you really want to, go deep and have a backcountry experience, you can have that too. And we've kind of done a little bit of both. Had had some success. I killed a raghorn the first or second year. I think it was the first year. Maybe it was the second year. It was the first year. Second year, I made a bad shot on a bull. Unfortunately, couldn't find it. And then last year, I didn't even draw my bow back. Had some encounters. Actually, hunted with your dad for a couple of days, and we had one really good day where well, man, boy, we were both close, and we were chasing around pretty much all day. We started in the morning, ended up locating a bull a couple miles away, and we moved on him, and he was just bugling his head off. But by the time we got over there, they were moved into a bedding area, and we started before dark or before daylight, and by the time we got over there, it was probably 11 o'clock or so, something like that. So we kind of camped out on the side of the mountain, just far enough away where we had the wind, and wind was right, and thermals were rising, obviously, so we were safe. We just kind of hung out there, all afternoon, and we're dozing off, sleeping, eating snacks, BS, and like that's the greatest part about elk hunting. I think your dad was actually maybe sleeping at the time, and all of a sudden we hear bugle, and then that bull that we were on he was within 100 yards. We got pretty long visual of him a couple of different times, but couldn't shoot him right then and there. Like we just weren't ready. And this is probably 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But he was making his daily loop, checking out the cows before they got up to transition back to the feed, and we got it. I don't know. We messed with that bull, and we're in and out of bow range with him probably for I don't know, a solid 90, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. It felt like just playing
Yeah.
cat
Wow.
mouse game in and out, and we ended up got busted by the cows, of course, and the gig was up. But that was a good day on the mountain.
Yeah, those encounters are always so valuable. There's always something to learn there. So you mentioned weather earlier. I know it's been a really wet year here in Ohio, but I don't know if you've been checking the weather out west. Like, what's it looking like out there?
Well, they did have a good snow melt, so that's good. It was also a wet spring, so that's good. There'll be a lot of grass on the mountain, a lot of water, which that area typically has water in a lot of places. But it's shaping up to be really, really good. It is a little dry right now, but no major fires kind of in that zone or in the relative area, so we shouldn't have to deal with that too much. So overall, it's shaping up really, really nice. It's just a matter of what is the weather and temperature going to do, here in a couple weeks when September rolls around, because I've been out there where it's the front end of September, and the highs are in the 80s. It's really, really warm. Of course, it's still cool in the evening, but we've also been out there. Can't remember if it was last year. I think it was the year before. We had a day that it was like a whiteout blizzard, and like that was it. Like everything was shut down. Roads were nasty. Couldn't drive anywhere. The elk shut down. So weather's been good leading up to season. We'll see what it does here in a couple weeks once the bell rings.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the year that I went. I slept on a cot and a really thin sleeping pad, and I remember, under the blankets or quilts or whatever I was sleeping under, but it was so cold that my bottom was getting cold, under the cot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know it was colder the year that I went, which is good when you're, huffing it up the hill in the morning. Keeps you cool and everything. But sometimes the heavy clothes are not super fun. But it's all part of the game.
It is. That's the biggest thing on being a whitetail hunter and like venturing west. It really is a different, unique set of, I guess, tools or gear that you need. And you don't need anything super fancy. Good boots and a pack, probably a must. But just having the ability to add layers and shed layers when needed, I think that's ultra important. When I wake up in the morning, I'm usually taking off in either a t-shirt or a very light long sleeve hoodie, like a merino hoodie or something like that. And that's that's pretty much typically it. And of course, when you get back to camp, if you have spike camp out, you got to throw your insulation pieces on, your puffy jacket or whatever if you're glassing. But you start hiking and it's 20 couple of degrees, and then you get to a spot where maybe you're glassing that morning and it's still 20 couple of degrees, and you sit down, and glass for a couple hours, like you'll freeze to death. You got to have the ability to put on layers and do different things. So it's a little bit different than whitetail hunting, but it's a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. So what I compare it with out east is turkey hunting. Like I think that turkey hunting is about as close as you can get to elk. Like you're moving around, communicating with the animal. You're really working it. You're playing the land, the landscape. For me, it's really helped like just teach me basic woodsmanship skills, like how to move through the woods without being seen, or how to stay quiet. It's a lot different than like whitetail hunting, how I've done turkey hunting, and I really compare it to elk hunting. I don't know if you ever turkey hunt much, but what would you say it compares with?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different styles and ways you could do it, right? I think most people like the call and locate, spot and stock kind of game. I think when everyone thinks about, not everyone, when a lot of whitetail guys want to start elk hunting, they envision going out, communicating with those animals, calling to a bull, having that bull come in from 100, 150 yards, screaming his face off, and you shooting one at 10 yards. I've never had that experience. Now, communicating back and forth, yes, but there's a lot of ways you could do it. I know, depending on what the temperature of the animal that you're going after, like there's times where you may need to spot and stalk and not make a call. Other times you want to be vocal and interact and call and make him think that there's a cow that's maybe in estrus and there's a bull in between or a lost cow or whatever the scenario calls for. But then there's also guys that will hunt them out of tree stands too. I'm like, if you pay attention to the guys who are killing really like world class bulls on private ground, they're hunting them a lot like whitetails. They're using cameras, they're patterning those animals habitually, and then creating an ambush spot essentially, whether it's off the ground or elevated out of a tree stand, and doing it that way. So I think the cool thing about elk hunting is there's enough room to make the experience whatever you want it. So if you want to play the spot and stock game, you can certainly do that. You can glass, locate them, spot and stock. If you want to go out and locate animals, with location bugles and have the interaction of, working into a bedding area and ripping a challenge bugle and having that bull come pissed off, come flying in from 100 yards, you can do that too. So it's just very flexible depending on, what type of experience you want to have, really.
Yeah, yeah, I know elk hunting is, yeah, very flexible, like he said. I know Dad is always running, scenarios through his head. We'll be on a road trip and he's listening to whether it's podcast, YouTube video, and he's constantly running scenarios, and that's a lot of the game that he plays. And, you can learn a lot of scenarios by podcast videos, but you also got to be in those situations and, really similar to turkey hunting. Like I hunted all turkey season this year, youth season to the last day, and had tons of encounters, lots of different scenarios, and I could tell I was really starting to get dialed in by the end of that season. And yeah, I think that elk hunting could be similar.
Yeah, it is. One important thing that I learned from your dad, and this goes back probably 3 years ago, maybe two. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But one of the first times I hunted with him, we had a couple encounters, and then after we messed it up, or I messed it up, he was like, "Well, what'd you do right?" And then I listed the things that went right, and he was like, "Well, what'd you do? What'd you do wrong, and what would you change?" And this is like immediately after we have the encounter.
Yeah,
And we kind of debriefed that situation, that scenario, what went well, what worked for us, what led to us having that encounter with a bull, and then what went wrong to screw it up, and like what things could we think now that we have more facts. Obviously he didn't like something that we did, whether it was a cow call or a bugle or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. But the important thing was he made me think about that scenario and debrief it in the moment. Like not
yeah,
that night at camp, not 2 days later, in the moment while it was fresh in my mind. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, dude, I need to do this on my phone and create a catalog of all the scenarios that I've screwed up so I can go back and reference, okay, well, this scenario, I should have used the lost cow call because that bull was 200 yards out and we weren't close enough to bugle, because when I bugled, he just took his cows and just kept moving, creating distance because he wasn't threatened. There was enough distance there where he felt better, and it was a better decision for him just to take his cows and create distance versus trying to defend them. So I think that was really important for me, and my learning, I guess, or becoming a better elk hunter was when you screw something up, or even when you do something right, sit down, take 5 minutes, go over the scenario, go over the situation, debrief everything, and create that catalog to help you in the off season. Because in the off season, like, let's face it, like I'm never going to be a world champion elk caller. Like I'm out there for a couple weeks a year with very limited interaction, just from a logistics standpoint. And I
yeah,
practice in the spring and I practice in the summer, but it's like it's making a call sound like an elk is different than making the correct call in the right situation. And I think that's what your
yeah.
dad's really good. What your dad's really good at.
Yes, definitely. I've learned a lot from him. But when you were saying that, I kind of keyed into that's exactly what I do for archery when it comes to making a shot, assessing what I did good, what I did bad. I think that that's a really efficient way to learn not only how to elk hunt, how to shoot a bow, like how to learn any task, whether it's business, I mean anything. Like at the end of this podcast, I'll probably assess, I did these things right during the podcast and I did these things wrong. What can I change for the next one to make it, better for the viewer? But yeah, I think that's a really great way to learn and grow yourself.
Yep, 100% totally agree. And it's weird because I've always done that everywhere else in business and in any kind of meetings and work, professional life, whatever, but just never really occurred to me to do it, you know, inside of my hunting ventures.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely really cool. So, I mean, we're closing in here. How many weeks do we have till September? What's the date today? August 12th, something like that. So we're about a month out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how are you preparing? Are you doing anything this early to get ready?
Yeah. Um, it started a long time ago. Well, physically, I think a lot of guys think about the physicality of elk hunting or just Western hunting in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be elk hunting, but I think most guys kind of focus on that, trying to get themselves in shape. Historically, I've always carried myself in pretty good shape. Played college football and rodeoed through my 20s, and I work out just about every day. It changes a little bit depending on what I'm doing. So I am doing more cardiovascular, anaerobic routines, I guess, or training to prepare for the mountains because it is different coming from sea level going up to elevation. You can't deny that.
Yeah,
So changing that a little bit, but primarily most of it is at this point for me is shooting. Just making sure
yeah,
I'm not shooting groups. I'm kind of past that early in the summer if I'm trying to work on something, if it's form or be more consistent. I have a different shooting regimen, but at this point in the season, I'm doing two things. One, I'm playing with broadheads, making sure, I have good flight with my arrows. And then I'm really focusing on making a single shot count. And this is probably going to sound crazy
yeah,
because you're in the target world, but I'm shooting from a lot of awkward positions, sitting on my butt, twisting my body, just things that happen in the field. Unlevel feet, unlevel ground, leaning back, leaning forward, leaning around a tree, just putting myself in awkward situations and trying to make one shot, just one shot count. And I'll do that hard for probably 2.5 weeks, kind of right in the middle of August. So I just started doing that last week. And then I'll dial that back when I, feel myself being a little more comfortable. And then I'll do a little bit of both. I'll do a little bit of group shooting and a little bit of the awkward stuff. But shooting with your equipment on, with a pack on, because you just never know what kind of scenario you're going to get into. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
we've had encounters where I've drawn on bulls that are 80 yards away, and then the shot that I screwed up a couple years ago, that bull was 10 yards. I mean, it
yeah,
was a 10 yard shot. So shooting above your peep sight, below your peep sight, if you're in low light, like just all the different scenarios that maybe you run into. And
yeah,
me, like I'm not an archer. Don't claim to be an archer. There's so many other people that are a better shot out there with a bow. I just try to make the one arrow count when it's supposed to count.
yeah, yeah. And that's how I shoot even target stuff. Yeah, we might be shooting, two, 300 arrows a day, but you don't look at it that way. You don't look at, yeah, I'm shooting two, 300 arrows. I'm shooting one arrow at a time, and if you can learn to make that one shot count, that's all it takes to hunt, to shoot target, really dialing in that one shot. And I really like what you're saying about, twisting around, making those difficult, like odd shots, because I mean, it's gonna happen. It's something's gonna happen no matter what it is. It's rarely ever a perfect scenario, and being able to practice, those odd situations, that can really up your game.
Yeah, I think that and refreshing yourself with like the body cavity and the anatomy of the animal that you're after, I think is really important. Knowing how those internal organs lie, and if you have a slight lean quartering two, like what is my window? If it's a frontal, what is my window? What's the effective distance? So just trying to understand better like the lethality of not only your setup but what you're capable of in different scenarios, I think is really important that a lot of guys don't do.
Yeah, yeah. So the whole shot placement thing, I mean, that really gets me going. There's so many guys that, yeah, they can shoot good, but they don't know where to shoot, And that's one thing that I practice more than anything is shot placement. Like, how the animal is turned. Like, first of all, you kind of want to pick a spot to hit. Like, in a lot of scenarios for me, that's going to be like the top of the heart on a whitetail, right? That allows you to account for a little bit of string jump, just different things like that. And there's lots of different opinions out there on that. But once you get an understanding of what's lethal, what's not, then as the animal's turning, you want to know where the bones are, what you can't hit. You want to be able to kind of visualize those organs, inside of an animal. That way, you're making a good shot. Like I said, there's lots of guys that they might be able to shoot good, but they just don't know where they want to hit. But yeah, I think shot placement is as important as anything.
Something else I learned from your dad that's really important, I think, too, is how long your shot duration, like how long it takes you to execute your shot, and how fast you can kind of boil that down to and still feel comfortable, like in the heat of the moment. Because I think that's something that I never really paid attention to. It's like, because a lot of times in the whitetail woods, like you can see that deer coming from 60 yards away or whatever the case is, and you have your spot picked out where you can draw and you're not going to get busted. And he walks into your shooting lane at 25 yards and you've been a draw for 10 seconds and you're anchored, you're good, you're good, you're good. And you let the shot go and it's a perfect window. From my experience, it's not always like that in the Western world. Like you have a split second. When I say a split second, you have a few seconds
Yeah,
to decide, draw, anchor, good, shoot. And it's like
yeah,
in the backyard, it doesn't happen that fast, right? Like, oh, you're drawing, your feet are good, your hips are good. Oh, I'm anchored. I have all my anchor points. Peep sight's good. I'm focused on the pin. Now I'm going to squeeze through the shot.
yep,
Try to condense that down into a couple seconds and see what the hell happens. Like it can fall apart real
yeah.
fast.
Yeah, that's one thing that Dad taught me a good bit about, getting into target archery. Not only in hunting do you want to have a be able to shoot a quicker shot. Sometimes when you're hunting, you have to hold it back there for a long time and be able to maintain your good form and not freak yourself out mentally. But yeah, I think being able to make a good, quick shot. Now you don't want to get punchy with it. You want to be able to control that shot. But yeah, even in the target world, we're doing a lot of extra stuff that you wouldn't do during hunting. But once I get back there and I start that shot execution, I want that arrow to be gone in 2 to 3 seconds. And I try to stay consistent when I'm shooting target archery. But if you practice your form, if you get those reps in, get everything kind of ingrained into your subconscious, you'll be able to gradually start making a quicker shot. And like in a hunting scenario, that's really important. When Dad's practicing before bow season, I think he can get down to where from the moment that he bends the string to when the shot fires is somewhere around 3 to 4 seconds, like super quick. And like you're saying, that's exactly what you might need in some situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So something that caught my ear there, you said a few minutes ago, rodeo. So I had heard that you did some rodeo stuff years ago, but I really don't know the whole story. Tell me how you got into that, how you got out of it, like what did that entail?
Sure. That's a big span of my life, and it's something, man, I was never really any good at it, but I would never change that part of my life for anything. Like if you asked me 100 times over, like, would you go back and not do it because you feel like crap when you wake up in the morning? I'd be like, hell no. Like I'd do it again, and I'd do it again, and I'd do it again, and I'd do it again. But really, growing up, I was in sports pretty heavy, primarily football, and I grew up on a second generation dairy farm. My grandfather transitioned out of farming, but like everybody there was infatuated with the Western lifestyle. So growing up as a kid, like I only ever wanted to be two things. I either wanted to be a football player or a cowboy. Like, and that was it. Like I had no plans to be a doctor or to work in the outdoor industry or, to be some kind of professional engineer, whatever. Like that was it. Football, cowboy. That's it. And so I took the football thing into college, played football at college, and then I think it was probably my sophomore year academically, I think, maybe my junior year academically. I met a kid in the dorms that had a buddy that rodeoed. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
we would watch bull riding as a kid, like when it used to be on like TNN was like an old school, like when the PBR first got founded back in the mid 90s. We would watch the PBR, and then there was like this local bull riding practice pen that actually is a mile down the road from where I live now that we used to go to when we were
Yeah.
kids just to watch. And it was like this kind of hillbilly gathering, and guys would pay $15 to get on practice pool. They were drunk, whatever, their girlfriend to impress their girlfriends, basically. Wasn't a very professional place, but anyways, we would go there sometimes as kids. I met this kid in the dorm who had a friend that lived in Montana. He was coming home for Christmas, and he was going to a bull ride. I was like, dude, let's go. Like, I have to. Like, we did this stuff growing up. Like, I want to go watch. So we went and watched. The Most of the guys there were on there. They entered because they wanted to impress somebody. The moment the gate opened, the moment they nodded for that animal, like they just jumped off. Basically, they just plain give up. And I was like, dude, I could do better than these guys. And they're like, oh, yeah, you can't, they're a bunch of friends. So it was almost like kind of a dare thing. So next week we went back. There was a practice pen on a Friday, and I paid, I don't know, $20 to get on the bull, $15 or something. Dude, I was scared out of my mind. And I did the same thing. Like, gate open, I jumped off. I'm like, God damn it. Like, I could do better than that. Like, I just let my nerves get to me. So I did it again, and then the bull kind of just like hopped and loped down the side of the pen or whatever. So I rode him. I was like, let's come back next weekend. So we came back the next weekend, got on two more. I tried pretty hard that time. Got thrown off of one, rode one, and then the guys there were like, "Dude, you're pretty good at this." And I'm like, "That's like the fourth one I've ever been on." Like, and they're like, "There's a jackpot next week, and you should enter it." I was like, "Whatever." So I was still playing football at the time. Anyways, entered the jackpot, won it, won the jackpot, won like $800 or something. I was like, dude, I could do this all day. Like, this is easy, because I didn't.
Yeah.
That's all the very small sample size, right? So we just kept going back, and the bullfighter there was getting his PRCA card, or was applying for it, and he knew some guys. And anyways, I got put in touch with the right people who kind of took me under their wing. Brandon Manning and Nate Olson, and there was a group of guys there. And that was really it. Like, I bought my RCA permit. I had been on like 30 bulls maybe, and bought a pro permit. And I was like,
Really.
that first summer we started traveling, I was just getting suitcased everywhere I went. I don't know how many thousands of dollars I lost that summer, but I lost it all. Anything I had, I
Yeah.
lost, because we were just entering pro stuff. And anyways, I guess I was just too dumb to give up, or maybe I was determined. I don't know what it was, but I did it for 10 years, almost 10 years. And then it
Wow.
got to the end where I had a couple back concussions, and I was like, I just need to take a break, let my brain settle a little bit. And met my wife. She doesn't really come from that world, if you know her. She's more of a city girl. And then anyways, things got serious between us, and that was like, at that point I was 28 or 29, and I had kind of set in stone when I started and bought my permit, and then I won enough money to buy my card. I was like, if I don't make it by the time I'm 25 or 26, like, that's probably it. Like, I'm not probably not gonna make it, is kind of what I told myself. And I can remember being down, driving to Mobile, Alabama, to a Goodry Brothers rodeo at like 26 years old, 27 years old. And actually, it wasn't a rodeo, it was a bull riding. It was after an RCA rodeo. But anyways,
What's the difference between a rodeo and a bull ride?
well, bull riding is just bulls, right? So you'll have
Okay.
45, 30 to 45 contestants. You'll usually get on one head in the long round, and they'll take the best 10 or 15 back in a short round, and the average wins, essentially. And they pay, the long round wins a little money, the short round will win a little money, and then they pay the average, is like a typical deal. In a rodeo,
Hmm.
you have all the timed events too, right? So you have three rough stock events. You have the saddle bronc ride, and or the bareback ride, and the saddle bronc ride, and the bull riding. And then you have the team roping, and the steer wrestling, and the barrel racing. So the rodeo world is a little bit different than just the bull riding world in general. Kind of, people think it's too. Anyways,
Yeah.
we're down. I traveled 1,100 miles to go down to Mobile, Alabama, and I'm like, I don't know, a couple $100 outside of the finals. And I ride my bull in the long round. I'm like, come back to the short round in second place. And this 17-year-old kid, goes for like, I don't know, he was like 80, 88, 89. I know he wasn't 90, but he was in the high 80s in the short round, and took everybody's money. I got thrown off in a short round, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you just got beat by a 17-year-old kid. You're 26, 27. You just come 1,000 miles, and you left with $300 in your pocket. So that was kind of like, man, that was kind of the acceptance of never going to make it. But anyways,
That's
fabulous
a
part of my life. Learned a ton about learned life lessons about who I am, as a person, individual. I met a lot of great people, man.
yeah, yeah, that's a cool lifestyle. Sounds like life on the road, always traveling. Probably got to see some cool parts of the country. But yeah, I mean, so you've got thrown off some times, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been to a couple rodeos. Like we went to Cody, Wyoming, saw that rodeo, and then just some different stuff at the county fair. I've never really seen any of the real stuff that you're talking about. But I mean, getting thrown off, what's that like? It's got to be like slow motion or something like that.
Uh, it kind of happens pretty fast, honestly. But I think
Really?
like your intuition is letting you know what is kind of happening. But things happen so fast. It's like as an athlete, you train consciously. Like it's repetition. You're training muscle memory for your body to respond in the moment subconsciously. So it's a lot of things that are just movements and balance and small little movements that are making a difference that you're doing subconsciously without thinking about it, because it happens so fast. If you were on the back of an animal and had to think about every little minor detail and movement and how to shift your weight and where to put your foot and when to be up on the inside of your thighs, like you would never be able to do it because it just happens so fast. It's not instinctual because you're training to do it, right? But you're
Hmm.
operating subconsciously.
What did your training look like for that?
So I was a big guy. I lost 40 pounds from the time I played linebacker at Youngstown State, and then 12 months later, I had a permit to ride in the PRCA, so I went from 235 down to 195 pounds. I starved myself.
Yeah.
I ate 2 pieces of toast and a bag of green beans for like 6 months, and that's all that I ate every
Yeah.
single day to let my
Wow.
basically to have attrition and let my muscles eat themselves to lose the weight. I would run, jog in the morning, a couple miles in the morning, and then we had a mighty bucky that we would do drills on, and we would do stationary work. Then we would do whatever throughout the day, and then I'd work out again in the evening times. I was lucky enough to have a couple local guys who we all bought our permits at relatively the same time. So we hauled together. There's three of us that hauled together, and we worked out twice a day essentially. But a lot of groundwork, a lot of drop barrel work, stuff on the Mighty Bucky, and then we would get on practice pools. Like we would go get on practice pools, or we would enter like NABA or SEBRA shows, like semi-pro amateur stuff. And then in the summer we would go hard on the RCA stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's definitely a unique thing to get into. I mean, you don't hear about bull riding and that very often, but that's really cool that you did that, and sounds like you spent a lot of time doing it too. Was that like a full-time gig for you during that time frame, or were you balancing work or
No, yeah, we were bound. You could do it full time, but most of the guys that try to do it full time starve. Like there's
really?
the top 15, 20 guys in the world are making money, and everybody else is really struggling. So we would go as much as our pockets would allow us. And typically what that would look like, we'd go to the amateur stuff, we'd win a little bit of money, and then we would enter 4, 5, 6 pro rodeos, and we'd go lose our money at the pro rodeos, and we go
Hmm.
back and work a little bit, odd jobs, whatever. Go to some amateur stuff, win a little bit of money, go to more pro stuff, lose our money, and it was just like a constant vicious cycle. But we
Yeah.
were always doing something else mostly. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's kind of like archery. The local stuff, you got a lot better chance of winning, making some money. And then you go to the nationals and it's like, yep, there goes my entry fee. But that's really cool. That's a very unique life. And then so you were what'd you say, 28, 29 when you got out of it? So then what was your plans as far as, business work after that?
had no plans, man.
Yeah.
I had no plans. The only thing I can say on that was, I never really wanted to have a normal 9 to 5. I can remember being a young kid, and I told your dad this story on the mountain one day. But one of the things, one of my biggest influences as a person came from my grandfather. But I remember as a kid, him sharing a story with me in the shop and it went something like, you can go get a job and work for somebody, and have a great life. You can have all the nice things. You can have a house. You can have a family, and you can live a good life. But you're never going to have anything unless you work for yourself. And like, I had no idea what the hell that meant, but it was like, for some reason, it always stuck in my brain. And I've always carried that with me. And what he meant was freedom, right? Like the
Yeah.
freedom, the freedom that the ability to work for yourself gives you. And it also comes with just as much or more responsibility, right? Like being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, running a business, most of the time you're working more than 40 hours, and sometimes you're making less than what you would at a normal job, but it gives you the freedom and the ability to have the lifestyle, to build a lifestyle that you desire, that you crave, that you want. And that's really what that message meant. When he was telling me that, that was the intent behind it. I just didn't understand it until I was probably in my mid 20s before I
Yeah.
really understood what that meant.
Yeah. Dad's been I don't know if preaching is the right word, but he's been kind of conveying that message to me and my sister for years, and it's really making sense. And I'm trying to start my own business stuff, setting up a form of income that is, diversified. It's a lot of it is working for myself now. Someday inevitably I'm going to have to get a job. That's just how it works. But I'm trying to set up those forms of income that, I can control myself, entrepreneurship, and I'm learning as much as I can right now. I'm 15 and a half, and there's a lot of lessons I can learn right now that aren't super consequential. I'm not going to starve if I mess up somewhere, but I'm learning some good lessons now, and I'm glad I'm doing it as early as I am. I'm really fortunate for that.
Dude, I've told you this in the past, how amazing as an individual you are, how bright you are. You're 20 years ahead of where most 15-year-olds are. That's just reality of it. I think whether you want to give your dad and your mom credit for that, I don't know. Something inside of you burns and ticks different than what the average 15-year-old does. Like, everybody can see it, not just in the way that you shoot, and in the archery world, but the way that you convey yourself, the way you communicate, the way you hold yourself in confidence, all the different inventions and tinkering that you've done over the last 2 years. Like, it's amazing, man.
Yeah, I mean, I always used to be kind of the quiet kid. Like, I never really talked very much until about the sixth or seventh grade. I'd always sit and, whether it was my Uncle Jared or Dad's buddy Nate coming over to the shop, and, Dad and them would talk for hours. And most time I would just listen. I wouldn't really talk much. I wouldn't contribute. But looking back, I wasn't just listening. I was learning. I was absorbing so much information. And, then about the seventh, eighth grade, I really started, talking more and having a good understanding of how to carry myself and kind of like what you're talking about. And then I started archery, and archery really opened a lot of windows for me. It kind of gave me a good goal. I never really did any sports like through the school or anything like that. That just wasn't what I did. Our family's never really done a ton of that type of stuff, but we've always hunted, fished. Dad did archery when he was my age at a pretty high level, and it's really been a good sport for me to learn a lot of stuff. I mean, I get to meet a ton of people. I get to sit on a podcast with Chad Sylvester, and but it's really cool. I've learned a lot as far as like just managing yourself mentally, whether it's during a test in high school or to being able to throw darts twice a year and still be a little bit competitive. But it's fun. I've learned a lot. It's definitely helped me. I think that having a something that you do and that you devote a lot of time to and really dial in your skills, I think that is very beneficial for a lot of people.
It is. I would agree with that 100%. Dedicating yourself to your craft, right?
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people mix this up because they don't know, they're not an expert, or they're not dedicated to something, and they think that they have this passion over here. But when you think about how you build passion, like, you have to put yourself in it and do it over and over and over the majority of the time before it becomes a passion, right? And
yeah,
like, you can kind of figure that stuff out in parallel at times. So it's okay not to have a roadmap, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to have a flag planted out there and say, okay, but you know in 2 years, this is going to be my passion. I'm going to be an expert in this, and this is what I'm going to do. Like, it's okay to run in parallel and kind of figure that stuff out as you go, because, in my opinion, there are some things you're naturally gravitate or pulled towards, but dedicating yourself to that, I think, teaches a couple things. Discipline is the biggest, because
Yeah.
there are days where you're motivated to do things, and there's days where you're not motivated to do things. And those who are disciplined and know how to do those things anyways when they're not motivated, those are the people that win at life. And it doesn't matter if you're talking
Yeah.
about exercise, business, personal finance, like archery, it does not matter.
Yeah.
Being disciplined in your life provides freedom, which is really weird.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's kind of an odd concept, and it's hard to understand it if you don't, try it out yourself. Yeah, it's a good deal. Discipline's definitely very important for, every aspect of life. Yeah, it's fun. As far as archery, so we just got back from Indiana TAC down in just across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. And that's kind of one of the final events that I'll go to this summer. So we're transitioning over to hunting. I just got a new target bow on the way. If you can guess what that bow is and the color of it, I don't know, maybe I'll give you something. So I'm getting dialed in for winter archery season coming up in December is kind of when it starts, but I want to get dialed in throughout archery deer season. But I'm also, getting the hunting bow out, starting to dust it off, getting some trail cams out, just different stuff, prepping for that season. This is a good transition point for me. Like, I shoot just about every day and have been since last December. And now's kind of a good chance to slow down a little bit, take my time, really analyze what I'm doing, and reset some stuff if I need to. But it's a good break time, and it won't last for too much longer, but I always take advantage of it when I do get those breaks.
Yeah, man, that makes total sense. How was the TAC event?
It was hot. I will say it was pretty hot. Not a whole lot of places to get out of the shade. We actually didn't sign up for any courses this time, so we just went to hang out at the vendor area. See the guys that we know, and it was kind of fun doing that because it seems like we always sign up for courses, and whether it's PA TAC we did this spring or some of the other TAC shoots we've done in the past, like. Um, I get so busy, running, talking to different people at the booths and stuff, and it's like, oh no, I got to go shoot a course now. I'm always so cram packed, but this time I was able to hang around the vendor area, hit the knock party, just different stuff. Spend a little bit more time at the venue versus out shooting, and that was some valuable time. We had a fun little weekend trip there.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That sounds a little more enjoyable, focusing on, building relationships and starting new relationships maybe. And yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, have you been to Attack yet?
I have. Yep. It's been the only one I've been to is Seven Springs, but it's been probably since 2018.
Yeah,
It's been, now
really.
we've gone as a company, but I did not go. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think. Yeah, I think it would have been 2018, maybe 2019.
Yeah. Yeah, so you hopped on the tack bus pretty early then. Like I don't even think I was shooting a bow then. But yeah, that's good. So you've been able to see it evolve, on social media. It's
Oh my
grown
God.
exponentially in popularity, and you can definitely see why. Like going to the first tack event I went to, I think it was 2023, Seven Springs over in Pennsylvania. Like you go there and it's a different vibe than anywhere else I've ever been. You walk into the hotel at the ski resort and everybody's wearing camo, everybody's got a backpack on, carrying a bow through the lobby. And it's like it's totally unique from anywhere else I've ever been to, even competitive archery events. It's just a totally different vibe. Everybody's there to have fun. It's really a unique experience and something that I hope I can continue to do for many years to come. But yeah, Total Archery Challenge. It's definitely a cool place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. The challenge is just to get there. Geez, oh man, it's become so popular over the last 5, 6 years. Like, you have a hard time just getting into the registration and making sure you have the a spot in line, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Kind of like a lot of tags, out in those western states. It's become somewhat of a lottery. Fastest man wins. But yeah, they're growing in popularity, and it's definitely for a reason. But yeah, I think tack is gonna continue to grow. They'll probably be getting some new events here soon, maybe even next year. I think the vendors are really going to start investing more into tack. Like, one thing I've noticed is going to target archery events, everybody's there, and a lot of people want stuff for free. They want a sponsorship, they want this and they want that. But at tack, it's like, from a vendor's perspective, tack people are there to spend money. If they'll go out on a course and blow up a dozen arrows from missing targets and hitting rocks, like, they go up to Lancaster Trailer and say, slap down a couple $100 bills and say, "Hey, I need another dozen arrows." It's definitely a unique place for vendors, and probably a good opportunity for them. But and again, the vendor area is starting to get really crowded now, which is good. The vendor area is pretty cool if you've never been there. But there's always giveaways and all kinds of new products to look at, check out. But yeah, it's unique, very unique.
So I remember that tack that or Seven Springs, I guess, in Pennsylvania when we were there in 2018, 2019. There was 10, I think 10 vendors there, if that. And we
Mm,
were like one of the only ones. Now they have, I think they call it like Vendor City or
yeah.
whatever they call it, a hub. And there's, I don't know, there's probably 100 there now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's lots of vendors there now. Everybody's jumping on it, and it's probably good for the industry. I'd say. Like at a tack shoot, like, I think Pennsylvania has some of the highest attendance, maybe next to Utah. I'm not sure which one has more, but it's somewhere in the 7 to 8,000 range, and I mean, that is a lot more attendance than even some of the largest, target archery events. There are a lot of people that go there, and they've got bigger venues to support it, but yeah, there's a lot of people there. Yeah, so as far as this season goes, I'm gonna start setting up my hunting bow. We'll see exactly what that setup entails. One cool thing that I have been trying for the last year, I'd say, I tried it last bow season. There's this old thing that Dad had laying around, and it's basically shaped like an arrow, but it's got branches and leaves coming off of it, like, and you put it right in your quiver, and it sets on the front of your bow, and that worked really well for last year wood duck season. I hunted with a bow for wood duck season, and
Wow.
yeah, that leafy thing helped a lot because those wood ducks have such good eyes, and then even deer season too. So I'll probably try that setup again this year. But yeah, I'm getting excited, starting to watch the cameras. Watching that stuff pinging on your phone every morning is kind of fun. But yeah, we're closing in on hunt season. It's getting close.
It is, yeah. Um, I right now I really don't even have that many cameras out. A couple weeks ago, I glassed a pretty good one up. Like during the summer, last handful of years, I guess since I moved kind of into a more rural area, um, I've been doing a lot of glassing in the summer, like with the kids, which throw them in, especially my daughter. My daughter loves to glass for some reason.
Yeah,
She doesn't want to touch or kill anything, but she loves just riding around the pickup truck with a pair of binoculars and looking at deer. So we do a lot of that in the summer. But I need to get my button gear in the whitetail woods a little bit. Lost a good one up a couple weeks ago that I have access to. But the hard thing, I'm like so dialed in, or not dialed in. I'm so intrigued by like this travel hunting and seeing new places and doing different things.
yeah,
I'll plan to spend most of my November time in you know somewhere in a prairie state, like through the Midwest. So I have that
yeah,
that archery elk tag, and then I have another archery whitetail tag as a non-resident in a prairie state. The time in Ohio is getting a little more limited, especially with my son. He just turned 9. He got his first 22 for Christmas last fall. Like he's like any other 9-year old with 22. Like he just wants to
yeah,
shoot at everything that is moving. The only problem is he's not a very good shot. So I think I'm gonna have to get him a 410 to start squirrel hunting with.
yeah,
He's gonna lose interest pretty fast.
yeah. Squirrel hunting, yeah, that's a really cool place to start. I think I didn't really start squirrel hunting until I was a little bit older, I think, but I did start with a 22. Now my 22 had a scope on it, but I think my first squirrel, I was propped up against a tree and shot out of the tree at somewhere around 50 yards. I want to say it was. I don't know if it was luck or what, but that was kind of a cool story. But
Yeah.
yeah, squirrel hunting's a really good place to start. Rabbits, that small game. I really wish that I did more small game even now. I think it's pretty fun. It's a cool little weekend trip, whatever it is. But
Yeah. 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 It's a good place to start. I think that's where a lot of people start, and then it just kind of gets lost over time because as you get older, you become more busy and other priorities, and it's like you can only spend so much time in the woods. You're going to chase squirrels or rabbits or deer or elk, or you kind of have to pick your own poison, for lack of better words.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of different options out there in the hunting world. So one funny story, I was just thinking about squirrels. I do a forestry competition in the fall, and I started last year. It's through the high school, through our FFA program. Our high school has a really good FFA program, VOAG, and one of the competitions we do is forestry. So basically, you're learning all the skills that a forester uses in the woods, right? Tree ID, how to use a compass, how to judge distance by pacing, like different stuff like that. It's a really, as a hunter, it's a really useful. They're really useful skills to have. But I remember our ag teacher. We were at a forestry practice, practicing those skills, and he had made squirrel for us, like, and brought in like tortillas and stuff, and made little squirrel tacos. And but he didn't tell us what it was until after we had ate it. He said it was like chicken or something. And I remember, some of the girls in the class, after he told them it was squirrel, their eyes got real big. But it's definitely wild game. I think it's a very interesting food. A lot of people are kind of repulsed by it somewhat, which doesn't make any sense to me because some of the best meals I've had are wild game, and fish too. But I think that wild game is something that really, really can be brought out to everybody. Like the wild game, like food industry, there's a lot of guys out there making wild game cookbooks. Steven Ranella, John Dudley cooks wild game. I think that's something that can be expanded upon as well, even within the hunting community too.
Well, definitely. I think, generally speaking, you know, again, people are so busy with their everyday life, running kids to soccer practice and extracurriculars, and like there's just a disconnect of where food comes from. Like, I mean, just having something as simple as a small garden, planting tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers or whatever, like in your backyard or in pots or whatever, I think is even enough to start you down that path of understanding like where food has come from for thousands, billions of years, right? Like we haven't
Yeah,
always been in this industrial revolution age or modern farming. Like we've only been farming has only been around for 10,000 years. Like in modern farming has
yeah,
probably only been around for 1,500 years, 1,000 years.
yeah,
So I think just over time we've just kind of been disconnected on some of that stuff.
yeah. One of my favorite things to do in the springtime is go down to the deer hunting property and kind of forage for food. Like we'll go down and pick mushrooms and a bunch of little plants. Like one of them that's I learned about here a couple years ago. It's called toothwort. It tastes kind of between wasabi and horseradish. It's really interesting, but there's so many wild stuff out there that you don't even have to grow in your garden, that you can eat and is really good too, and probably good
Yeah,
for you as well. But
100%.
yeah, yeah, that's cool. Well, I think we've hit about the 1 hour mark here. We better start wrapping it up. But yeah, I appreciate the conversation, Chad. This ought to make for a great first episode of the Launch One podcast. I'll have to see what all platforms we'll share it on, but I'll get it out there on as many platforms as I can, and hopefully start building a little bit of a viewership.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you. I know you'll do well in your media venture, and I am honestly a little bit humble and grateful to be the first episode or the first guest. We talked a little bit back and forth about strategy, and you had some questions and different things, and I was shocked when you asked me to be the first guest, honestly. So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, well, you've been on more podcasts than I can count, and you've definitely got some good know-how there, and all the help that you gave me starting this, with the strategy like you're saying. Yeah, this is gonna be a good first episode.
All right, man. I appreciate your time and happy the rest of the day, man.
Yeah, you too, Chad.